January 23rd. It was a Saturday, and I was 14 weeks pregnant, and I woke up and I realized something was wrong. So I quick called the midwife, and she had us come over, and she confirmed that our baby no longer had a heartbeat. And so she had advised us at that point that because I was so far along, that I should go to the hospital and have a D&E performed. She made a phone call to the hospital and talked to an OB, and the OB said, well, because it's the weekend, we can't do that unless she's actively having a miscarriage. But as soon as that does happen, make sure she comes in immediately, because there is a very high risk of hemorrhaging. So that night I woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning and my water broke. And within a minute, I delivered our baby. And it was very apparent that what she thought would happen was happening, and I needed to get to the hospital. Our neighbor across the street came and comes in the back door, and he says, "How can I help?" We hadn't called him. He just showed up. Ben was able to get there at the hospital, and OB came in, ended up being the same OB as my midwife had talked to over 12 hours earlier. I started hemorrhaging really bad, and I needed to have 2 blood transfusions. And they were able to staff that OR within 20 minutes. Afterwards, Ben had talked to the OB, and he said, well, what would have happened if we would have been at the cabin or something like that? And she looked at him and she said, she wouldn't be here. I feel like when you go through these events, it's natural to ask, why? God, why did you let this happen? We don't get that answer of why. Just being able to see God's hand on me through, it's pretty amazing.
But even in the midst of that, I was blessed to be able to see, as each of those circumstances occurred, I had the light bulb moment. Okay, God, you just fixed this problem. Okay, God, you just handled that. It was unbelievable. And because of that, I feel like we both had so much peace in the midst of a terrible night. And that's really what I wanted to give testimony to, and I accredit a lot of that to the First and Final 15. If you do that long enough and sincerely enough, you will train your mind and your spirit and your heart to recognize in the moment when God is intervening on your behalf, when God is moving on your behalf. And because we have walked in that, we felt tremendous peace and comfort in knowing that God was with us. We didn't see him standing there in the same room, but he was there. And not only was he there, but he worked through people like Judah, like the EMT and the paramedic, like the physician who was, I think, at like hour 18 till we arrived, but knew her by name and knew the situation. Like miracle after miracle that turned just a horrific experience into something that was manageable. It still wasn't fun, and we still wish it never happened, but we can sit here and give testimony to God's faithfulness because of that, and his goodness and his love.
Amen.